Good morning, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for being online. I see Vice Chair Heyman, and who else is online? Richard, Commissioner Devlin, is he online?
Yes.
Anyone else?
Commissioner Thomas.
Oh, good. Okay. We're going to get started. As you know, our first agenda item today, and actually I think the star of the whole meeting, of our two-day meeting, is the strategic plan. I am thrilled that we have it. It was literally to the day, almost exactly a year ago, that we gathered in the HECC boardroom to introduce the strategic planning process. At that time, I was convinced of the importance of this specific planning process. At this moment in HECC's actually relatively brief history, I emphasized then the peril facing higher education nationally and in Oregon, with which you were all familiar, including everything from politics to demography to technological advance and certainly price tag. While worried, I was energized last October in part because of the urgency of the work at hand. That existential threats tend to help you focus and kind of reach further when you need to. I was convinced that we could meet the moment and during these bad, difficult times. And what I told you then was that a new strategic plan must, among other things, prioritize the needs and expectations of students and of citizens, of taxpayers, certainly over a business as usual approach, and also over other things, that our strategic plan must focus on the very few most important goals for students and citizens and map a path to deliver on their expectations. Our actions, the choices we make, not our words preaching at them about how sound and how beneficial higher education is, must convincingly demonstrate the value of higher education. As Ben said yesterday, it's the value equation. Second, I told you that we must clarify and underscore HECC's role within Oregon post-secondary education. Our statutory authority goes well beyond the collection and dissemination of statewide reports, the approval of programs, and the distribution of state funding. It is HECC's responsibility to provide a unified strategic vision for Oregon higher education, and we need to lean into that role. Since then, Ben has shared with me more of the history of HECC that I knew, and it turns out in the founding documents, well, once they really got organized, the sort of second set of founding documents, Governor John Kitzhaber said at HECC's launch, "Your sole purpose is student success. You have license to think big, including in ways that create discomfort, in order to produce transformations that will make Oregon a place where post-secondary completion is the expectation." So if you go back even to the founding legislation, in addition to all the legislation since then, it's very clear that we have the responsibility to guide even when it causes discomfort, and to make sure that we are, as needed, helping to transform higher education. The third thing I asked of us then was to elevate a systemic mindset to demonstrate that we're not in Oregon, even though we have independent schools with their own unique governance and in their own unique regions of the state, that we're not just a collection of schools and buildings, but an interdependent system that exists to serve the well-being of all Oregonians. And so we need and want to emphasize going forward that it's not every school for itself in Oregon. There's both independence and at the same time, there's an interdependence. We knew a year ago that this plan would probably be different than previous plans, that it would reach beyond the sort of generally aspirational. I asked that it be compact, that it be very tight and focused, with clearly measurable outcomes that would provide a roadmap for success. As we review it this morning, I ask you to look at it through that lens, please. As you think about it, think about, does this move us toward having a roadmap for success for Oregon students, for Oregon as a state, and for the institutions and all of their stakeholders. I will tell you that after reading it, I got the first look at the final draft just last week or a little before that. I'm more energized than ever and more ambitious for what we can accomplish. I believe we're making the right choices in this strategic plan, and the strategic plan is about choices. And I hope you agree, and if you do, that we will pass it later this morning, and that you will help us have a relentless focus to accomplishing the goals, the outcomes that we promised in this plan. I want to thank the whole HECC staff. There are a lot of people on staff that I don't even know specifically who contributed what, but they really worked on this and contributed their passion and expertise. And Ben, of course, who led us all and kept our ambitions for this plan front of mind, and I'm sure throughout the planning process. Representing us on as commissioners, Greg Heyman, Emily Simnett, and Arnell Fajardo were our representatives and were involved in every step of this process, including public meetings and planning meetings. And also our consultants, Sarah and Susan. Susan is here. I understand that Sarah's going to be a little late coming in from Coraggio Group. They were just wonderful in guiding the process and the keepers of the flame and in encouraging and organizing the public meetings and things like that. I will tell you finally that in a long career in business and nonprofit leadership and way too many strategic plans, I told Ben and Greg last week, I don't think I have ever said, I'm really excited about this strategic plan. And by golly, I heard myself uttering that sentence last week, and I was just, I've never said that before. But I do believe that this is the right plan for this moment in time, and I hope after discussion you will agree. So thank you all.
Thanks, Madam Chair, and we'll move, I think, directly into a present. Let me turn this on. We'll move directly into a presentation from Coraggio, from Susan Karosky. I think focused initially on the process, and then it will present the plan. Yes. Yes.
Sorry.
Sandy Rowe.
Oh, it's working.
Thank you.
Thank you,
Can
Susan.
everyone hear me? Okay.
Yeah.
Good morning. Such a pleasure to be here on behalf of Coraggio Group to help facilitate this discussion about the strategic plan. And thank you, Chair Roll, for acknowledging all the hard work and the contributions that everyone made to create a robust plan that is really transformational for the citizens of Oregon and the key partners in higher education across the state. Thank you, Guthrie, for sharing the slides. If you could go to the next slide, please. I'll just take you quickly through our plan for our time together today. I'm going to talk a little bit about the planning process. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but just a refresher so everyone is grounded in how we got to where we are today. Then we're going to turn it over to a combination of staff and commissioners who are really integral parts of the planning process to share out both the vision, mission, values, and the 5 goals that are encapsulated in the plan. And then it'll come back to me for a discussion where we'll be asking a few questions to help you reflect and think about what this plan means going forward. Next slide, please, Guthrie. Next slide, please. So just a little bit about the planning process. Next slide, please, Guthrie. Thank you. Here's a quick timeline, and I always love it when I see that star at the end, just because it usually is just the encapsulation of a journey that you all have been on. I feel very privileged and honored to have been with you every step of this way. On this journey, I participated in many of the focus groups, and both with commissioners and with a broad group of partners and stakeholders. I helped facilitate many of the work group sessions that were a combination of commissioners and staff, and had many other great, robust discussions with online, offline about how to make the plan be exactly what you had hoped it would be. And it's just wonderful to see you all at this point at a place where you can take a step back and say, job well done. So congratulations on that. Next slide, please. Just a few of the numbers associated with the process. So in the Get Clear process, we have over 408 responses to the survey that went out. We hosted 5 sessions, focus groups with 36 participants, and we conducted 10 one-on-one interviews. All of that data collection and information gathering helped us develop some initial thought starters for the planning group that met over a series of sessions. I also had the privilege of attending the commission retreat in May, where you had an opportunity to share your initial thoughts of what the plan might look like and how it might come together. After the work sessions, we then went back out and sought additional feedback on the initial draft. That feedback was very robust, and really just want to, again, thank everyone to put their heart and soul into providing really candid, thoughtful feedback to help shape and plan and get it to this point. Next slide, Guthrie, please. It just happened, okay. Please hold for a moment. Technical difficulties.
Can remote viewers hear this gooseneck microphone?
No.
Yes.
All audio had been eliminated.
Okay.
I believe, can you hear me now? Yes, I'm seeing, okay, a head nod. Okay, great.
Getting a thumbs up from the vice chair.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Guthrie, for quickly navigating the technical difficulties of our day today. Appreciate that. The only other thing that I'll just call out from a key theme from the Insight report was related to workforce development, as I mentioned, and the deep and robust conversations that the planning work group had around that topic and how to make sure that that was well integrated into the plan that you're going to hear today. If you could go to the next slide, Guthrie. I know you're multitasking over there, so appreciate it. So let's go one more slide. I am going to turn it back over to Ben. Ben, I believe you're going to take us through the vision and mission.
Thanks, Susan. Yeah, so I'm just so excited to share the updated revised mission statements that we landed on approval. Before I get into those, I actually want to say a few words about vocabulary here, because
thanks, Guthrie. I want to say a few words about vocabulary because it's something that the planning team wrestled with, and frankly, the HECC has wrestled with since its inception. We are the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. That's how we're described in statute. And as many or all of you know, our work goes well beyond what folks typically understand to be higher education. Typically, when folks hear those words, they think of colleges and universities, they think of degrees. As you're aware, the HECC's portfolio includes a lot of activities that take place outside of colleges and universities, but support Oregonians in accessing careers, accessing living wage jobs, accessing services. Much of this happens through our Office of Workforce Investment. So there's very much a concentration of activity focused on workforce connections. But it's not all higher education. And so in part of what is reflected in this vision and mission and throughout the document is an attempt to recognize that the role of the HECC isn't merely the completion of higher education degrees, right? It's about short-term training, it's about employment, it's about even volunteerism and civic contributions through some of the work that we administer, again, through the Office of Workforce Investment. So I mentioned that because that did have a bearing on the revised and I think improved vision and mission. I won't read, well, I will read these because they're short and if they're really important. They're our vision and mission. So for the record, you all have it in front of you, but the proposed vision is that the Oregon Higher Education Coordinating Commission, the HECC, envisions a future where all people benefit from the economic, civic, and cultural impact of high-quality post-secondary education, training, and workforce development. And so you begin to see this, the way that we're sort of wrestling with these terms: higher education, maybe post-secondary education, workforce training, workforce development. You'll see throughout the document primarily a focus on learners, although there are a few references to students, but students implies really a college focus, and our portfolio goes well outside of that. So mostly what you'll see throughout the document is the word learners, occasionally workers, depending on the context. Part of what we've done with the vision and mission, beyond really thinking through the vocabulary and reflecting the breadth of the commission's responsibility, is brevity. So if you compare this vision statement with our current vision statement, it's fewer words. The same is true of the mission. The vision is just that, a vision. It's what is the ideal state that we hope to create. The mission attempts to express in a succinct way really how we're going to do it. What are the ways in which what are the activities or the categories of activities through which we will accomplish this vision? And then we'll, later in the document get to goals and specific strategies. So the mission statement incorporates the categories of strategic activity that you'll recall from prior strategic planning work of the HECC, but goes a little bit beyond that, and nevertheless tries to keep this succinct. So the mission statement, the proposed mission statement, through strategic coordination, funding, outreach, services, reporting, and leadership for systems change, the HECC drives equitable post-secondary access and success for all Oregonians, anticipates and meets workforce and economic needs, and strengthens Oregon's collective future by fostering research, innovation, learning, civic engagement, and cultural contributions. I think the final point I'll make about what we've attempted to do here and what's a little different in this vision and mission than what preceded this draft is an emphasis on the impact of our work beyond the individual. So clearly, individual well-being is still primary within this document and within this mission. We are concerned with the way that post-secondary education and training impacts individuals and their success. But you also see in both the vision and mission a real emphasis on how the support that we provide for Oregon education and training impacts the collective, right? It strengthens our state's future, and not only through the the preparation of Oregonians for work, but also through the ways in which our the activities that take place at colleges and universities and elsewhere foster our economy, strengthen the economy, including through research, innovation, other activities, and improve communities through civic engagement, cultural contributions, et cetera. So this goes, whereas our prior vision and mission has been more narrowly focused on individual impact through post-secondary, individual well-being through post-secondary education and training. This calls on us, this vision and mission calls on us to consider and reinforce and support our education and training institutions and Oregonians in contributing to community. So that's, I think, another important thing to call out about the new vision and mission. That's my report.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ben. I think now we're going to go to Greg, who's going to share about the values. So Guthrie, if you could go to the next slide.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you, Ben and Chair Rowe, for getting this going. I especially appreciate Chair Rowe's referencing back to Governor Kitzhaber's words with regards to his vision regarding the purpose of the Higher Education Coordinating Commission. And I didn't realize this because I had forgotten those words, that I think to some extent his words are well represented in one of our values, and that is determination. So I'm not going to go through each one of them, but I do want to talk about why I think this specific part of the strategic plan matters, and matters a lot. I think I've been involved in a lot of strategic planning processes. I like Chair Rowe, was impressed with this one, and I have often found us moving mission values and then to goals. And the incorporation of a section on values, I think, is very intentional and very meaningful. Perhaps a number of ways in which we might understand this, but for me, these are sort of the guiding principles or the founding beliefs that we're going to use as we pursue the goals that come after this. And so while some people may think of some of these being goals in and of themselves, I think it was important for us to think of them as overarching beliefs that would impact all of our goals, all of our strategies, all of the ways in which we measure outcomes and success. And so I'd like to frame these 6 values in that sense. I think another thing that was important to us is recognizing that it's relatively easy to say, okay, we value equity. What we realized, and I think was important, is that we don't always mean the same thing when we say that. And so we went to quite a bit of length to try and define what we meant when we talked about each one of the values. And so while some may think of it as a fine print, I think the importance of each one of these is well delineated and well defined in those words. I'll pick on equity, for instance. One of the things that was critically important to me, and I think to the group as a whole, is to recognize that equity challenges us to do something that is hard, and that is that we engage in a way that shares power and leadership. Those were critically important words to the group. It isn't just being together. It isn't just sort of respecting each other. It is coming around a table in which we have a shared purpose, and we share power in the process of pursuing that purpose. And those are critically important words there. And so I wanted to draw attention to those. I thought about, again, determination. And again, thinking again of Governor Kitzhaber's words. This is I would say, very forward-thinking and challenging strategic plan. It's going to push us in ways that sometimes will make people uncomfortable in pursuit of incredibly important things. And so this value is essentially a statement that says this, even though this is tough, even though this is complex, even though we might run into roadblocks or misunderstand, all kinds of things are possible here. There's a level of commitment to pushing through those things, a determination in order to serve the mission and of the Higher Education Court and Commission. I think we all had, it was an interesting value because I think we all had ideas around that. We struggled with what to call it. We struggled, I think there was a time in which we thought it might be a goal, but I think we really came back and said, no, this is really a guiding principle. This is really a value that we're going to need to lean on as we move forward, that we are determined to achieve the mission of HECC and that we're committed to it even when it gets tough. And I thought that was critically important. It was critically important to our group. Thought about empathy, another one. This one reminded me of a variety of things, but one of the things personally it reminded me of was the sort of commitment and effort that Chair Rowe and myself have taken upon in terms of going out and visiting each one of the universities and colleges during this year in an effort to better understand the institutions that we serve and support and coordinate, to have a deeper and more personal understanding of the impact that our policies and decisions have on those institutions and on the students that they serve, to step beyond what could seem hierarchical to that place where we enter into this effort together because we really understand the impact that these actions have, and we care about that, and we care about the people and the institutions that are impacted. That's really what empathy is, and it's a foundation for our first value, which is collaboration. There are a lot of ways of thinking about that, but for me, and I think for the group, collaboration is a recognition that I alone or anyone alone can't really fully understand the goal and the strategy towards that goal. And so in order to achieve the things that we care about, in order to fully understand those things, we need not just getting together, not just communication, those are all critically important, but a deep collaboration around these things that we care about. And so it's critically important. And I really, it can't get full representation here, but boy, the conversations that this group had around forming the wording, the identification of these values was a learning experience for me, and I think for the whole group. And I hope that in every action we take, much in the way as we look at our policies through an equity lens, we will come back and look at our actions through the lens of all 6 of these critically important values. So thank you. That's mine.
Let me just add a word or two. Thank you so much, Vice Chair Heyman. First, I'd like to note that the value of determination, even near the end, when I was first seeing this, I was saying, well, now, wait a minute, is that a value or is that a goal? And should we move these words? And it was Vice Chair Heyman's, I think, determination to get determination as one of our values. And then he was damn determined to keep it there. And it really, now looking at the whole thing, it's absolutely critical because of the ambitions of our plan. So thank you for all of your leadership on this, but specifically for that. I also wanted to note, when I think of the values, I'm used to decades of male leadership where everything's a sports metaphor. Well, I don't do sports metaphors. I do cooking metaphors. And I see the values as slicing and dicing. So the values run across everything we do in every one of these goals, which are the dicing. So for those of you who might not see all sports metaphors, just think of this as these values run across every goal and every one of our actions. So thank you.
Okay, so I will be followed by Arnell and Emily and Commissioners Fajardo and Simnett in presenting the 5 goals and associated strategies that are on page 2 of the draft plan. We'll say a few words about each before turning it back to Susan to facilitate the discussion. Just want to note the structure of this. The goals are in that first column. The outcomes are in a sense, placeholders for measurements that we will use to determine whether we are making progress towards these goals. So a fair amount of thought has gone into the outcomes, but we have not landed on, and this is work to come, landed on specific metrics that would be associated with these outcomes. So I think you can expect to see some evolution of the outcomes as we look at our existing data and metrics and determine what we can use to measure progress, or whether we need to develop new metrics and data in order to determine whether we're making progress. And then finally, the strategies start to suggest what are we actually doing as a commission and as an agency to meet the goal. So the first goal, honestly, this one, in some ways, I think might have undergone the most rewriting over the course of several months, but it arose, its origin was at the planning retreat that this commission had back in May, and you might recall that sort of sticker exercise. There were a lot of stars next to this goal, and I don't think the wording of the goal has changed very much. The strategies went through quite a few revisions, but the goal is to improve the responsiveness of Oregon's education and training systems to the goals and needs of learners, employers, and communities. And that sort of structure of thinking about relevance in terms of relevance to the learner, relevance to the employer, and relevance to the community is reflected in the outcomes and strategies. And so I won't go through the strategies here, except to again note that these strategies, in some cases, some of the strategies really are focused on relevance to the individual. So that's really best reflected in the 4th, helping broaden learners' understanding of their possibilities, opportunities, and responsibilities. So supporting learners in sort of expanding their horizons and ensuring that the work that we do and the work that we support meets their needs and goals. As well as the first, fostering equitable workforce outcomes, where we're prioritizing programs and experiences that really impact the learner and result in sustainable wages, training for in-demand careers, and equitable advancement opportunities. And then, relevance to employers. You see that through connecting post-secondary education and training to workforce needs, and relevance to communities, the work that we will do to contribute to solving community problems. I think a lot of discussion will follow at this commission over the next several months and likely years about how to take these strategies and turn them into action plans. So welcome, during discussion today, maybe the beginning of that as you look at some of these strategies and may have questions. Well, what would this actually mean for the HECC? But that's where we landed for relevance.
I think I'm next to one.
Turn your mic on.
There we go. Technology. It's the best and the worst. We'll be talking about alignment, but before I talk specifically about this goal, I just wanted to talk briefly about or just restate how amazing this experience was for me. And going back to some of the value of collaboration, especially being able to work more closely with fellow commissioners as well as agency staff was it was a very informative and really crucial for my understanding of what is possible for the state of Oregon and for the learners in Oregon. And I just really wanted to say how much I appreciated that opportunity to talk with people who are focused on areas outside of what I focus on in my everyday work, which is as a faculty member at a university, working with people really dedicated to thinking about workforce development in different ways than I had been was really helpful. And I have to say that Coraggio, right, I'm saying that right, was fantastic in facilitating the discussions. I always felt listened to, and I felt like the facilitation helped me listen to others. And I think that's really crucial to the work of setting a strategic plan and for our work as a commission. So just wanted to preface that my remarks by saying that. So alignment, I think this you will recognize that there are goals or outcomes and strategies here that we have already been focused on, thinking about, for example, student or learners transferring from one location to another. I think alignment really sharpens that desire to align all of the work across the state so that it makes sense for learners, so that there are pathways and that those pathways are clear. And the pathway isn't just from community college to university, but it's thinking broadly about careers and a career over a lifespan too, not just at any particular moment. So I feel very encouraged by the way that this brings and sharpens that sense of importance of bringing all of the various pieces of post-secondary training. Can we use training? Language does matter. Brings all of those pieces together. And I think just hearkening back to that value of collaboration, alignment is about the agency or the commission thinking about collaboration, fostering collaboration across multiple sectors, and then measuring how that's going with the outcomes. One of I also wanted to just note that I think there is a lot of interrelatedness between the goals, and you can't really take one out and being, well, we're just going to work on alignment, because you can't really work on alignment without thinking about relevance, for example. So I just wanted to note that, and to highlight, going back to relevance, I would this broaden learners' understanding of their possibilities, opportunities, and responsibilities. So excited to see that strategy named in that particular way. There was so much discussion about how we really help, what the commission can do to help Oregonians see the possibilities and make those choices. So I know I'm going backwards a little bit, but I did want to call attention to that. I think that is, I won't read the specifics here, but just to say that I think this is a really a sharper focus for us in how we align the system for pathways for learners.
You're up. Okay. Good morning. So goal 3, affordable access. I don't think this goal really needs a whole lot of introduction. Susan already kicked it off as far as saying that this is and has been a hot topic, not only for Oregon learners, but really all U.S. learners for post-secondary education. So we're going to do this. It has to be in one of our goals. Outcomes, I think these are fairly straightforward. I think we've already been working on measuring these outcomes through Dr. Amy Cox and her team through the Office of Research. So we'll get those metrics in place, but we already have a head start. I'd really like to focus my statements on this goal, on these strategies. And those three bolded items there. For growing state investment in learners and institutions, that's really going to be understood, right? We've already been working on that. We're going to look at how we can increase financial aid for students of lower income to make sure that they have the financial means to pursue their post-secondary education. So I think that's really kind of understood. I don't think there's going to be much argument on that strategy. But the next two, I think, may provoke some more discussion. I think we wanted to really stretch as we reimagine these strategies, what we want to do going forward. And the second and third bullets really kind of embrace the realities of post-secondary education as far as the experience for the learners. So that second one, help learners meet their basic needs. And really, aid should go beyond just tuition aid. And certainly that's going to be necessary, but in many cases it's not sufficient. And so we need to embrace the reality that basic needs, well-being is really foundational before learning can happen. And so we need to be recognizing that students need to be taking care of their well-being. So how can we as HECC address the basic needs of learners? And then that third one, support institutional efficiency. This is one of just embracing the reality that appropriation from the state of Oregon is not going to be, it's not an infinite coffer, right? So there are going to be times when we have to look at what we have in our budget and how do we make the most of that. So it's really just talking about efficiency. How do we reimagine? How do we innovate? How do we, necessity is the mother of invention. So how do we incentivize new ways of thinking about this, new ways of reaching students to make sure that they don't have these escalating costs in front of them and they continue to pursue post-secondary education. Thank you.
On that, the last strategy of that, I'd just like to note, at least in my view, I tie that mentally to the determination goal. And really, we're coming close to making an outright statement that even if state resources are not sufficient or not what they should be, that is not an excuse for Oregon, for us as the commission, and for the universities not to make progress. We have to live within whatever, we have to maximize our push for more resources, but we can't say, and we can't accept others saying, well, we don't have the resources. If something is a priority, we have to find a way to do it. So those two twin for me. Thank you very much, Arnell, for that.
I'm up again to talk about belonging, this time with the microphone on. So I'm going to just repeat again this idea that language matters, and a great deal of care and discussion went into discussing all of the elements of this goal in small group and large group discussion. So I'm going to read what the goal is, because you will hear echoed this expansiveness of the agency that has already been discussed today. Elevate learner voices and support inclusivity and belonging in all post-secondary learning settings. We did, in talking about this, thinking about, are we talking about students? Are we talking about learners? Are we talking about teachers, trainers, faculty? We used a lot of words to think about the different groups, and you will see reflected in the strategies that we have students, we have learners, and we have providers. It was really important to us to also think about belonging and supporting students and learners in the curricular spaces, whatever those curricular spaces look like, as well as outside of that, in fostering a sense of belonging. We wanted to highlight, think about curricular spaces as important to pay attention to those and to listen to students in all of the places that they are in. And I mentioned curricular. I can't help in mentioning that. I can't help but think of the tour that we had of the new science building here on the Portland State campus, and I think that is a real. I'm gonna call it out if I can, because I think that's a real example of what we're trying to get at with this goal of listening to students and creating spaces where students and learners feel like they belong. In hearing about the way that student voices were really represented in the design of that building, and I'll give one example, and feel free to correct me if I've got this wrong, but even the way that the windows into the classrooms or the glass into the classrooms was shaded so that students didn't feel on display, because some of the students had talked about that was something that was important to them. They didn't want to always feel like they were looked at. At the same time, we wanted light into the building. And I just thought that was that small example of the many choices that were made in that building is really really what we're hoping, what we'd like to see, I think, as a commission and as a state happen more broadly, not just in building design. I also wanted to say, just note that part of our discussion in one of the planning sessions, we talked about how we felt fortunate to be in Oregon, where we can and must use language around belonging and being culturally responsive and equity and empathy, and that we can use those terms. Those terms are important to us. They are more precise than other terms, and that I think this goal is where you see that commitment to equity really coming forth. I think one of the challenges will be in the strategies, investing in belonging, supporting providers. How the agency in the state enacts these strategies, I think will be somewhat of a challenge. But we are determined to do that. So I think that's. I look forward to any discussion on this particular goal, and appreciate the opportunity to present it to you all.
Okay, goal 5, leadership. This goal started out as a discussion of workforce development, as far as what HECC should be doing, as far as working to bridge the completion of post-secondary education with workforce development. But we've really made this much more expansive, and I think it's a trend in making, taking that word coordinating in the title of HECC, and really assuming the mantle of leadership, and not just being a passive coordinator of resources among different groups. This is really just about partnerships. How do we partner with economic development agencies, entities, private industry? How do we make sure that we're making those linkages, facilitating those linkages, so that we can basically help our learners and help understand the demand pools for people who have gone through post-secondary education in the state of Oregon. The word, so this really has, this harkens back to, what Commissioner Hayman, Chair Rowe were saying about the value of determination too, is really, we're going to take the leadership. We are not going to use things as excuses given limited resources, given limited time, limited funding. We're not going to use this as excuses. We're going to see what we can do to innovate, to work with others, and to make sure that we continue moving forward. The word, you hear the phrase government agency, right? But I think this really speaks to the the vocabulary of agency in the different definition of agency, the state of being a positive and intentional, driver of action, right? Not just a, government bureaucratic group, but really us taking the agency and partnering with, again, the demand pools. Where can we put learners, and where do they fit after they accomplish and finish their post-secondary education? Thank you.
Thank you all. I believe my mic's on. Can you hear me okay? Just want to quickly check before we open up the discussion topic. All right, see a thumbs up. Perfect. So now I'm going to facilitate a few prompting questions to allow the commission to share some reflections now that they've heard from everyone around the vision, mission, values, and the goals. And then I'll turn it back over to Chair Rowe for final discussion. And Claire, if you want to just go ahead and type here. Sarah, thank you. Good morning. So the first prompting, Guthrie, if you can go to the next slide, and hopefully this is going to work. I think it will. Guthrie is live sharing, so my colleague Sarah here will be capturing your thoughts so that the folks that are online can see the discussion live. So for you, as you now have heard the plan and think about the plan, I'd love to hear your thoughts on what is the change or focus that this plan represents in your perspective. Who'd like to get us started? Go ahead. Yes.
Is it working? So to me, as a recent student, the focus of this plan is super important with the voices of students and also the faculty and staff. It's super important to bring in all that relevance into something this large that is in the state of Oregon. I appreciate the work that everybody did, so Coraggio and everybody on the commission, to facilitate this process and make sure that those voices were heard.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. And Guthrie, you may just need to refresh your browser in order for it to update. Thank you. Who'd like to share next? What change or focus does this plan represent? Oh, yes, Commissioner Devlin. Apologies. Oops, I believe you're muted.
To me, what I think it provides is a framework for future discussions at the commission level. To me, I see there are many opportunities when we're discussing certain items to bring up, the mission, the values, some of the strategies, the outcomes we're looking for. So hopefully it improves our level of discussion of items, and I think it will do that. I know that there's some disagreement in members of the commission, and that's to be expected. But I do think there are some things that I'm hoping that I can make a strong case for, and that is this case is made here on affordability, because it doesn't just simply list financial aid, it lists support for institutions. And regardless of what anyone presents, I don't personally believe that there's any way you can make higher education affordable in the future if you don't do something about rising costs. It can't be simply a matter of financial aid, and I think this strategy points that out, that it also has to be increased support for the institutions. And I think we need to realize that when people talk about shortages in funding, you should keep in mind what the overall levels of funding are and the choices that have been made and how post-secondary education has been prioritized or not prioritized. Because I do think very clearly that our role is not simply to provide the best financial aid packages we can for the most needy students, while increases in costs are basically outpricing or making it impossible for many more students to attend post-secondary education. Fundamentally, I just don't think we can increase student aid enough to make up for the fact that state support has declined and continues to decline. But I do think when you look at this, there are plenty of opportunities in here when we're discussing an item to bring up, many of these aspects, the goals, the outcomes, the strategies, what our underlying vision is. And I think that might improve significantly our discussions at the commission level.
Great. Thank you so much for sharing. Would like to go next.
Thank you. What I noticed right away is the really wonderful directive, it seems like, to increase communication across the entire post-secondary landscape. And having that be from, the workforce talking into the programs and the higher education institutions discussing what's going on with each other and how they can share resources and just really optimize around the resources, the wraparound services, noticing the impact of environment and setting on the learner's success, I think is a huge difference in that noticing the population of learners, and not just the historical learners, but learners that we want to be succeeding right now in the workforce, and who the state of Oregon needs to succeed, and recognizing their needs to feel comfortable in the environment and to be motivated to learn and participate, I think is the really outstanding thread that I see throughout this entire plan, and is going to be the number one important thing in the success of this plan and the future of education in Oregon. And it's not just for people who have been historically marginalized, it's for everybody, because the system that we're working in right now is really old. And we're trying to update something that should have been updated probably every 3 years for the last 400 years. And so it's a heavy lift, but a little bit of it at a time really gets noticed, and it does. And when we're doing this work of attempting to reverse that much, honestly, colonized institutions that are specifically built even just for people of a certain height. Even how tall you are in the environment makes a difference in how comfortable you feel. So I just want to give big props to all of the different words that I see in here, because language matters, and I appreciate the focus on that today, and that when we're talking about appreciating culture and appreciating lived experiences, then we're really going to make change. So it matters, and thank you. That's just what I notice.
Thank you for sharing. Yes.
Thank you. I also wanted to go along with honoring the lived experiences, and going back to, in every single one of those goals, I see the innovation and the necessity of we need to change, driving that, and making sure that we're listening to the right people as we're, thinking outside the box that has been a very small, tight box for a long time, is exciting. And I see these too with the reports that have come through. I really am enjoying just seeing the innovations that are happening, and, knocking down that ivory tower, letting people in.
Thank you. Vice Chair Harriman, I see your hand.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment. I found it interesting, representing the question, the prompt, and the word change. And interesting. I guess I see the strategic plan not so much as a change as a evolution of the HECC's understanding of itself and its purpose, and its capacity to make the changes for which we were invented. There's a sort of we have a deeper understanding of what our purpose is, and I think this strategic plan represents that. And I think we have a stronger sense of resolve to pursue those changes in this plan. And so I never, again, I was very good to be reminded of Governor Kitzhaber's words, which are visionary, and I think the strategic plan represents just a stronger understanding of that and a stronger resolve to accomplish that. So.
Thank you. Yes.
I thank you for those comments, Commissioner Heyman. I agree, but I also at the same time I think that the focus of the plan really represents the particular moment we're in and addresses the very particular challenges that have arisen in a time where the value of post-secondary training is really being questioned. And I feel I have many favorite things about the plan. I don't know if is that okay to have multiple favorite things? But I really appreciate that we are not just thinking about the individual and their specific economic outcome immediately following training, but thinking more broadly about the value for our state, for our culture, for our civic engagement, that learning and continual learning and opportunities for learning, especially opportunities for those who have been historically left out of that process, are important and especially important at this particular moment in time. So I guess that goes to what I really feel that this is a very relevant plan for right now and necessary, absolutely necessary.
Thank you. I believe I see Evelyn's hand. Evelyn, I'm sorry.
Hi there. I was really happy to see the number 7 point that was raised on the strategic plan about workforce development specifically. I just wanted to emphasize that a lot of the issues that I am seeing in the lack of services that the state is able to provide is due to a workforce shortage. I've been seeing this with medical professionals, with social workers, with behavioral health professionals, with mental health professionals. And the only way that we are going to get out of a workforce crisis is to incentivize folks to actually get trained in our post-secondary education system and to make it easier to do so. So I was really heartened to see this element emphasized in the strategic plan. I would love to expound on that and potentially raise the importance of this particular element of the strategic plan as we move forward with this budget season.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Yes.
I'm pretty new to the commission, and so it was, I wasn't sure how this changed, but I thank you so much to all the commissioners who spoke, maybe that this is an articulation of where we want to, what we've been doing, but where we need to be, and also taking into account students' voices more is really wonderful. I am looking at goal 3, affordable access, and again, being new, there's things that might be understood by the commissioners, but when I hear things like shared services and collaborative program delivery as strategies to maybe mitigate some of the funding shortfalls, I don't know if those mean something different to you all than it does to me, but in my experience at my university, you know, it's wonderful to experiment, I think, with some cost cutting, and I mean, it is imperative sometimes to try some things. But for instance, in my experience of shared services, it was incredibly disruptive and didn't, I think, have the outcomes that we're hoping for. So I don't know if it's useful to have those kinds of like specifics in the plan, or maybe to just explain a little bit more about what those mean would be helpful.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. I do want to go to the next question and spend just some brief time. I know many of you have shared what you're excited about the plan, but if you haven't had a chance to share what you're excited about the plan, I'd to open that up for anyone that would like to add or share their own thoughts of what might be exciting to them when they think about the plan. Yes.
Thank you. I'm a new commissioner, and I will say a year's work was presented here, and I didn't have previous strategic plans to compare it to, but I was quite impressed, and I've been involved in creating strategic plans in other organizations, and I feel like this was very well written and thoughtful. I love that it's student-centered, and one of the things that really came out was to eliminate financial barriers for student success. That's just to eliminate those as an outcome. I think that's a really exciting thing to have in this strategic plan. And there were some other thoughts, but I'll stop there.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Yes.
Well, like everyone's kind of been saying, I'm just really appreciative of just the focus, I guess, of the reality of where students are currently, and the increasing questioning of, is higher education worth it? Because it is important, whatever pathway that is, if it's outside of college, if it's, finding your purpose within the community is a very important thing. And I also appreciated just the focus on understanding all students' needs and understanding that all students kind of come from a different background and a different pathway. So really being empathetic is important. So I just really appreciate the values too that were just stated, and you can see them throughout the goals, and appreciate all the work that everyone has done to get here.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else would like to share anything that particularly excites them about the plan that hasn't been shared? Then we'll move to the final question that, this, you as commissioners, as stewards of the plan, we just wanted to give you a moment to talk and say, what does this plan mean for your role as stewards of the Higher Education Coordinating Commission? If anyone wants to share their thoughts on that. Yes.
I have a lot of questions about outcomes and measurement of the outcomes and how we'll do that. And I think there's a lot to dig in there, especially there were several places where there were talk of increased learner satisfaction, increased satisfaction in different areas. It was throughout the plan, and that's difficult to measure at best. And so I look forward to conversations where we talk about how we would accomplish that.
Great. Thank you for sharing. Yes.
I just think it's important, as my role personally is reflecting back on all decisions made and everything, going back to the values at the very base of it, and does every one of them line up with those core values as we're moving forward?
Thank you for sharing.
I think the piece of that that interests me a lot is both the institutional accountability with HECC staff. We have an extraordinarily talented staff who do things with purpose. And now part of what we're saying is, okay, well, gosh, we have a lot of reports, but we may need some new reports. Well, does that mean we eliminate other reports? And how does this highly professional staff adapt to changes that aren't explicit in this plan, but that might be suggested? And the same thing with the commission. This is the type of plan that once we've defined the outcomes and measurements, it will be interesting to see what we decide are the best ways to look back every 6 months or so and say, okay, what's the specific progress on this? And then what has changed? And to really be able to use this once it's finished as a tracking device for ourselves to kind of not look at one particular decision, but okay, on this goal, how much progress are we making? And how do we know that? And how do we know it really works for learners? So I think that part of the tracking and the accountability within staff, within the commission, and with the institutions that we represent is going to be very interesting and challenging, but also is one of the real strengths of this plan, is that it's going to make that possible.
Thank you.
I wanted to reflect a bit, or I have been reflecting a bit on this question, what it means for our role as HECC, and building on some comments that Vice Chair Hayman made earlier in the meeting, and the chair as well, really at the outset. I think if you go back in time to the early years of the HECC, 2013 to 15, 16, there was a real, I mean, the HECC was created in a real moment of decentralization of Oregon post-secondary education. That was most obvious in the independence that public universities sought and received from state oversight that they had experienced currently within a university system. And it unleashed a lot of energy and innovation and activity and even funding, depending on how you look at it, at the university, at the institutional level. And that was shared, that spirit I think was shared and continues to be shared by our community-led community colleges and the many other organizations, public and private, that have a real spirit of autonomy and independence. And it was very striking to me in the feedback that we received through various phases of this process, not all of it, but much of the feedback that we received, survey, focus groups, really emphasized the enormous demand for state leadership, direction, coordination, communication for this work for post-secondary education and training. And that came even from, at times, places that 6, 7, 8, 10 years ago, I would not have expected to hear it. I think there's a recognition, a growing recognition, that for our independent institutions to thrive requires strong state leadership, not oversight. Nobody came, or few came to the commission or this planning process asking the state of Oregon through the HECC to take over or direct activities in the ways that we haven't. But there was a consistent theme in the feedback that we, and the input that we received in this, for this plan, that the state has a bigger role to play in order to support our thriving and very autonomous institutions. And I think that's, to me, reflected in the vision, mission, values, and goals and strategies throughout this plan. You see, I think, the commission trying to step into more deeply into its role as a leadership organization for post-secondary education and training in the state of Oregon. And so that, to me, is what this means for our role as HECC.
Thank you. Chair Rowe, I know we are at time, unless there's any other, I know you're going to open it up for some general discussion and a motion, so I will turn it back over to you. But on behalf of Coraggio Group, I just want to thank you all again for allowing us to be your partner in this journey. It has been an absolute pleasure of getting to know everyone better and be part of your world for a brief period of time. And I can't wait to see the amazing things that you're all going to do as you move forward in implementing the plan.
Your comments and for your leadership. Even from my distance, it was easy to see how effective you were and how essential your effectiveness was to our successful process. So thank you. So commissioners, I don't want to, yes, we're at time, but there's no need to short circuit any discussion or concerns that you have. So if there's anything else you want to say or ask about or try to alter, even now is the time to say it. Okay, can we have a motion, please? Oh, I'm sorry, please go ahead, Commissioner Biscoe.
So there's three things that are more like wordsmithing. So I know over this process, I've asked you guys to change from residents and Oregonians because they're not totally inclusive of like exchange students, non-residents, immigrants, stuff like that. So there's 3 points in here that I noticed again that needs just a little bit of tweaking to learners again. But other than that, that's it.
So on things like that, let's pass them. I think what I'd like is a motion to approve as written with any corrections needed, and then that can go to Ben and we'll tweak where needed. We're not going to go back in, of course, with wholesale editing, but if there's anything that misrepresents, then our motion will allow for that. Okay? Is that right?
Motion to approve.
Thank you very much, Commissioner Biscoe. And second?
Second.
Any other questions or discussion? So the motion is to approve as presented with any corrections as needed in the spirit of what has been written. And all in favor? Aye. Any, those opposed? Any abstentions? And the motion passes. Congratulations, commissioners. You have a new strategic plan. I thought he was going to stop for a minute. Did you see the fear in my eyes? That, oh no, we did something wrong. Thank you all very much. Okay, we are on a break. Do we have 15 minutes? Guthrie, enough time for 15 minutes or 10?
We can, why don't we resume
10:30?
10:30 if 10 minutes is enough?
Okay.
Probably finish early.
Okay, 10:30. Thank you very much.
Looks like 10:32.
Okay. Round up. Thank you. Okay, we are back in session, and our agenda is now we have quite a few rule changes, and some of them are quite significant, some of them are more pro forma. But let me see, who on staff is presenting? Kia Sorensen, is she here on screen or in person?
I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
A little bit louder, please.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, thank you very much. Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Rowe, Vice Chair Heyman, and Commissioners. My name is Kaya Sorensen, and I'm the Deputy Director of Private Post-Secondary Education at the HECC. In the August 2024 Commission meeting, you voted to approve a temporary rule change to Oregon Administrative Rule 583-030-0010, which details the conditions that must be met for possible exemption from degree authorization in Oregon. Before August of 2024, this rule contradicted statute. HECC staff recommends making this temporary rule permanent so that the rule continues to align with statute. As we worked on these rules, we convened members of the Office of Degree Authorization Advisory Committee and asked for feedback on our proposed changes. They stated that the language differences in rule and statute before August were confusing and the change added clarity. A public comment hearing was held on September 19th and no comments were received. This is an action item and we hope that you will vote to approve these as permanent rules.
Thank you very much, Kaya. Okay, so this is just a change from a temporary rule to a permanent rule. Are there any questions? Motion, please.
Move to approve.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion passes.
Madam Chair, if I may, thank you for approving the rule. While this was a very straightforward rule change, doesn't deserve a lot of time. I think it's valuable, especially for newer commissioners, to recognize that what this rule accomplishes and what the statute to which this rule is linked accomplishes is to describe what schools in Oregon, post-secondary colleges and universities, are exempt from the requirements of receiving HECC authorization to operate in Oregon. And so this is actually the statute that underlies this rule is very important. It is a long-standing statute that determines whether a degree granting school in Oregon is independent from state authorization. States handle this very differently. In Oregon, I mean, you can read the text here, the criteria that determine whether a college or university is subject to HECC authorization. This is the statute that results in the fact that a Willamette University, a Lewis and Clark College, a Pacific University, a Reed, I could go on the list, 10 or 12 schools are not subject to HECC oversight and are therefore what we call independent colleges and universities.
Thank you very much for that explanation. Does that raise a question, Jennifer? I'm sorry.
And just,
Commissioner Smith.
that's good. Being new again, so like Willamette and Pacific don't also receive benefits of being part of the state oversight in terms of funding and things like this.
Yes, that is, Commissioner Smith, that's largely the case. There are ways in which our work continues to intersect with those organizations and in which some state funding helps to support those organizations. It's modest, but I'll mention them since you raised the question. Those schools do participate in certain state programs, including the Oregon Opportunity Grant, where our need-based aid program is available to Oregon resident students who attend those schools and qualify for the grant. So that is one way in which it's really focused on the student, but it is passed through the institution. So that's one way in which these independent institutions are participating in state programs. They also have the opportunity to apply for certain state grants that we administer, including Future Ready Oregon grants. And so we've had some support to the independent colleges and universities through that program, at least applicants. I'd have to check the list on whether they have been, whether any of those institutions have been a part of successful and funded applications. And then we coordinate with them, and you'll hear, commissioners will hear from time to time from their association, the Alliance of Oregon Independent Colleges and Universities, or from those institutions directly, because they are very much a partner in some of our efforts around, for example, transfer, potentially the direct admissions work that we're doing, where they may be observers, they may be at the table, they may be direct participants in the activity that we're helping to coordinate.
Yes, Commissioner.
Thank you, Chair Rowe and Executive. Thank you, Chair Rowe and Executive Director Kanan. I guess my question then is, these institutions then are not part of Common Course numbering?
Correct, Commissioner Middleton. They are not subject to the law associated with Common Course numbering. They have been, again, observers of the work of the Transfer Council that's helping to establish Common Course numbering and the transfer pathway. So very interested in some cases in aligning their own, I don't know about Common Course numbering specifically, but certainly the transfer maps that we're developing. We may see private institutions, independent institutions, sort of modeling their own policies on the work that's developed at the Transfer Council, given their interest and seat at that table, but the law does not apply to them the same in the way that it does to the publics.
Anything else on that? Okay, the next item is 13.2. It's a permanent rule amendment on the Tuition Protection Fund to strengthen the protection for resident Oregon students if the schools disappear. And that is Matthew Altman from HECC.
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Chair Rowe, Vice Chair Heyman, and the commissioners. My name is Matthew Altman. I'm a lead compliance specialist in the private post-secondary schools unit. Today, I present a proposed permanent rule change for your approval. The rule OAR 715-045-0029 pertains to the Private Career Schools Tuition Protection Fund, or TPF. TPF is a fund used to help protect students when a school closes or ceases to offer educational services to students in the midst of their program. If a school is unable to make required tuition refunds, the HECC can authorize reimbursements from the TPF. Eligible students can then file claims against TPF to get a full or partial tuition refund. The TPF is funded entirely by licensed private career schools. The proposed change clarifies the rule as it applies to schools based outside Oregon. These schools pay into the fund and have a liability limit, just like other schools do. However, for schools outside Oregon, both contributions and liability limits are based only on the revenue that is received from Oregon residents. The proposed change clarifies that if one of these schools were to close, any TPF claims would similarly be limited to students domiciled within Oregon. A public comment hearing was held on September 19th. 2024, the HEC received one inquiry about the proposed change, essentially asking for a more detailed explanation. Once the change was explained, the person was supportive. The rule change has also been discussed with the Private Career School Advisory Committee, and they also support this change. Please note this is an action item, and we hope you will vote to approve this as a permanent rule change. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that thorough explanation. Any questions about this rule change and who it applies to and why? Okay, motion, please.
Move to approve?
And a second? Thank you very much. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Any opposed? Motion passes for that permanent rule change. The next one, 13.3, relates to the transcript standards, especially for, or specifically for the withholding rules in relation to private career schools. And Michael Rawls from HECC.
Hello.
Hello, is that the right pronunciation of your last name?
Yes, it is. Thank you.
Thank you. Please go ahead.
All right. Good morning, Chair Rowe and Vice Chair Heyman and Commissioners. My name is Michael Rawls, and I'm an Education Program Specialist in the Office of Degree Authorization. Today, I'm here to talk to you about some proposed rule changes for your approval, all of which pertain to the private career schools and the Office of Degree Authorization transcript rules. Oregon Revised Statute 350.210 was passed in 2023. It was a law that disallows Oregon-based post-secondary institutions of education the ability to refuse to provide transcripts to current or former students if a student owes debt to an institution. The changes presented to you today align Oregon Administrative Rule 583-030-0035 and Oregon Administrative Rule 715-045-018 with the new law, which adds clarity for both PCS or private career schools and office degree authorization institutions. Public comment hearing was held on 9/19/2024. We received one question asking if the proposed rule changes simply brought HECC rules into compliance with ORS 350.210, and the answer was yes. Again, this is an action item, and we hope you will vote to approve these as permanent rules.
Thank you. Ben, excuse me.
Yeah, I just wanted to add on to that great explanation from Michael, noting that the law that passed in 2023 that prohibits institutions from withholding transcripts for the purposes of debt collection applies to all post-secondary institutions in Oregon that are authorized by the HECC, are public, or are private career schools. So sort of three categories of schools. This rule applies to two of those categories. The degree granting authorized schools, these would be private institutions that are required to receive HECC approval in order to operate in Oregon. So typically for-profit degree granting institutions, as well as private career schools, which are not degree granting. The public colleges and universities are also subject to the exact same law. The rule is not written to apply to them because, and I clarified this with Kyle, and if there are questions, I'm sure he can explain this, that the public institutions are well aware of this law. They are, as far as I know, in compliance with this law. We don't have a body of administrative rules that's akin to what we have for the private institutions. And so the law really is self-effectuating. It requires no further articulation and administrative rule by the HECC in order to apply to the publics. We chose to move forward with this rulemaking for the private institutions because we have a large body of rules that the private institutions are accustomed to using in order to understand their obligations under Oregon law. So that's why you see it here. I didn't want there to be any confusion about whether this applies to public institutions or not. It very much does. The same requirement that they not withhold student transcripts for the purpose of debt collection. And that has been since 2023 the law and continues to apply to them, even though it's not subject to this, is not a part of this rulemaking action.
Thank you. Questions about that? Any questions? Okay, motion please.
So moved.
Thank you. In a second. Got that, Guthrie? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Okay, now we are up to 13.4, which is another permanent rule change. This relates to the funding process in the Oregon Opportunity Grant and changes there. And Kyra King, are you there?
Yes, Chair Rowe.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair Rowe, Vice Chair Heyman. This is to bring the permanent rule amendment for the Oregon Opportunity Grant. There are two separate changes here. First is amending OAR 575-031-002 and 575-031-0025. Or based on the Senate Education Omnibus Bill from the last session. This language outlines a more transparent awarding structure for the Oregon Opportunity Grant and how those awards are calculated. The second part is adding a new rule, which is 575-031-0027. And this is language that's been in statute for many years, but funding was never at a level for us to consider implementing it, which is for funding retention and completion for students who have exhausted their Oregon Opportunity Grant and other aid and just need a little extra funding to get to that final step on completing their degree. Based on increased investments to the grant, and since we already had to do the rulemaking process because of that last Senate bill, we thought this would be the right time to kind of just get both done at once so that we have that option to use retention and completion awards if we had funding. For both of these, we worked extensively with our Oregon Student Aid Advisory Committee, which is made up of financial aid directors, folks from policy with the community colleges and public universities and OSA. We had a public hearing on September 19th. During public comment, we got one feedback, which is to retain 575-031-00257D, and our response was to retain it. So the changes that you have in your packet address that feedback, and we have retained that language. This is an action item, and we recommend passage of the rules.
Thank you. Ben, do you think any further explanation is needed?
No, it's an important rulemaking action. I flagged it for the commission
Right.
In the email over the weekend. And as Kyra well stated, it really is responsive to this requirement under the law that recently passed that the commission adopt a more transparent process for establishing how the Oregon Opportunity Grant is awarded, award amounts, award tiers. And so the principles for an award structure are reflected within this new rule or this revised rule. And we think it strikes the right balance between ensuring that the staff has the flexibility that it needs to administer this program from year to year based on available funds without having to go through a lot of process, while ensuring that our partners are confident that they know basically the approach that the staff will take to structuring the award. So that's the balance that I think is sought here, and that after many, many months of work with an advisory commission, and great credit to Kyra and the other staff at the Office of Student Excellence and Completion, that's the balance I think we've struck within this rule.
Seems to be. Are there any questions about that for Ben or for Kyra?
Yes.
Commissioner Devlin.
Madam Chair, I didn't exactly get the cite from Kyra for the portion of the previous rule that was retained at the request of someone who testified.
Kyra,
Yeah,
can you go to that specifically, please?
of course. Commissioner Devlin, that is 575-031-00257D, which I think would be at the bottom of page 3 if you're reading the red line text.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome. Can I have a motion, please?
Move approval.
Thank you. A second to approve? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion is approved. Okay, we're to 13.5, which is the permanent rule change relating to the community college funding distribution. And, oh, bringing in the big guns. That's Jim Pinkard.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I appreciate it. Good morning, Commissioners. It's a pleasure to be with you. And for the record, Jim Pinkard with the Office of Post-Secondary Finance and Capital. The fairly straightforward permanent rule amendment in docket item 13.5 for your consideration this morning does relate to CCSF changes that were made last year. So you may recall we created two new set-asides, one for student support and one for student success. And so the question at hand here is when to distribute the related funding for them. After collaborating with the colleges on this issue, it was recommended the funding for both those set-asides should be distributed quarterly, with 4 payments occurring in each year of the biennium. The amended rule language implements that proposal. A redline version of the amended language is included in the docket item, along with the full text of the amended rule. No comments were received during the public hearing from a couple weeks ago. Staff recommends approval, and with that, I'll take any questions.
Questions, Commissioners? Thank you very much for that clear explanation. Can I have a motion to approve, please?
Motion.
Motion by Commissioner Bisco, a second.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, 13.6 relates to the establishment of common course numbering and the articulation agreement. And yes, we have Mr. Kyle Thomas.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kyle Thomas, Director of Legislative and Policy Affairs for HECC. This rules part of your meeting has been going a little fast, so I'm going to slow it down. This rule adoption pertains to the issue of common course numbering. So just a little bit of a quick review and primer. Last year, you adopted a series of rules governing the creation and implementation of major transfer maps. This rule set was the first major piece of administrative rulemaking to come out of the 2021 reforms that were launched by Senate Bill 233, establishing the Transfer Council and new lines of authority for the codification of transfer and articulation policies and practices between public institutions. So today we're here for round 2, dealing specifically with policies around common course numbering. Common course numbering is a process for aligning course information for the most transferred lower division courses. And the goal and purpose of a common course numbering system is to streamline transfer and reduce excess credit accumulation by unifying and ironing out some of the differences that may exist between very similar courses across institutions, such as they are considered the same course at all institutions offering a course under that course number. Even without administrative rules in place, and as was also the case with major transfer maps prior to the adoption of those rules, the Transfer Council has made progress in developing commonly numbered courses. To date, the Council has completed alignment for 18 courses, with an additional 17 courses being planned for alignment in time for the 25-26 academic year. While building those courses, the Transfer Council, as is their job under Senate Bill 233 and related law, also provided staff with its recommendations for this rule set, and those recommendations were considered by staff as it put together this staff recommendation for your review today. I'll summarize the overall feel of these rules, and then I'll go into them one by one. These rules devolve to the Transfer Council the authority within a set of parameters and limitations to approve common course numbering course policies. These policies, which are documents containing the critical details of an individual course, become binding on institutions once adopted. While the Transfer Council is granted authority for the final approval of common course number course details, the Commission maintains important connections to this work. It can require the Council to develop certain courses if the Council is not able to plan for a sufficient number of them. It can determine when the Council is making adequate progress. It can eliminate courses from the universe of potential courses, and ultimately it can determine when to free the Council of the requirement to annually develop new courses. This interplay between the Commission and Council might feel similar to that established in the rules passed for major transfer maps last year. Every attempt is made for the academic content of courses to be determined by the faculty through the processes established or overseen by the Transfer Council, including the use of all faculty subcommittees to determine the learning outcomes, credit loads, and course descriptions for commonly numbered courses. Meanwhile, the Commission can use various tools to ensure progress is regular and the capacity of the Transfer Council is maximized, stepping in if necessary to compel the Council to act if it is not within the timeframes established by these rules. So I'll take a few minutes now to go over the individual provisions of the rules. And the rule numbers are long. I'm not going to read every one. I'll just use the last couple of digits of each rule as I go through them. So Rule 005 is the definitions rule. In this rule, common course becomes a defined term. This definition is important because it establishes the universe of what courses count as courses that can be examined for alignment. Because it's the Council and not the Commission that must plan for and adopt common course policies, staff felt it was important to establish a wide and comprehensive universe of courses that the Council could be responsible for drafting. And so any course where there's an articulation agreement between two or more institutions or any newly created course the Transfer Council develops a common course numbering articulation policy for is considered common and is subject to the provisions of the rest of the rules. The definition rule also establishes the concept of a common course numbering articulation policy, which I'll refer to as CNAP from here on out, which becomes the governing document containing the content and details for each course, and which is adopted by the Transfer Council at the conclusion of course development, becoming binding on institutions at that time. Moving into the rest of the rule set, Rule 065 requires the Council to plan for developing a minimum of 10 common courses per year. The Council is free to choose and alter the criteria it uses for course selection within the bounds of the definition of common course. This rule includes ways the plan can be modified. First, if the Council does not choose 10 courses, the Commission can add courses to that plan. Second, the rule recognizes that there will be diminishing returns, and at some point, the project of building the initial course list should be considered complete. And this rule allows the Council to make a case to the Commission to reduce the number of courses the Council must complete and even eliminate the requirement that the Council develop new courses on the basis that this common course numbering system is substantially established to the point where additional student benefit is unlikely. The next rule, 070, details how CNAPs come together, which is through faculty subcommittees appointed by the Transfer Council. Rule 075 requires the adoption of a CNAP for each common course the Council wishes to approve and specifies that any course for which a CNAP is developed must be the same number of credits at each institution. It includes a provision designed to encourage but not require the Council to avoid increasing credit loads for students. If a CNAP is developed that is greater than the least number of credits currently awarded for a course governed by that proposed CNAP, the subcommittee must provide justification to the Council so that it can consider the issue at the time of adoption. Staff stopped short of requiring the Council to adopt CNAPs at the lowest current credit load because often the subcommittee conversation results in the adoption of a course that is different in learning outcomes than any current course. And this new course may not be able to be taught with those learning outcomes without that additional credit above the minimum. Rule 080 requires the Council to adopt a number of CNAPs each year by majority of vote necessary to make sufficient progress to establishing the common course numbering system. The rule does not establish what that minimum number is. This allows the Commission to consider the circumstances around the Council's work and weighing whether the Council has made enough progress when determining whether or not to take further action to compel the Council to produce common courses. The rule gives the Council an initial year to develop a course into a CNAP and provide notice to the Commission regarding any course that the Council has planned for but has not approved. It also allows the Council to determine that a course it has planned for should not actually be created as a commonly numbered course. Sorry, I have an email pop up. And it allows the Council to recommend the Commission exclude that course from further consideration. Rule 085 allows the Commission to move courses to adoption if the Council has not produced a sufficient number of them in a year. If the Council produces fewer than 10, but the Commission determines sufficient progress is being made, the commission can simply roll those courses not completed over into the next yearly plan. Otherwise, the rule establishes a process similar to the major transfer map rule on this issue, where the commission can cause a CNAP to be drafted and returned to the council for adoption or modification within a 90-day window. Otherwise, it will be deemed adopted as drafted. Rule 090 is mostly a summary rule of actions scattered throughout the rule set that the commission can take, indicating that the commission can add courses to the annual plan, reduce the annual plan requirement, or eliminate the requirement the council adopt new courses altogether, or exclude individual courses from further planning, or declare a lack of timely progress, which triggers that 90-day window I just mentioned. Rule 100 describes the effect of the adoption of a CNAP on institutions. It mandates that all institutions must participate in the Common Course numbering system for any course they offer that has an associated CNAP. It prohibits institutions from forcing students to retake CNAP courses on transfer, or from enforcing a different grade requirement for the course on transfer students as they do their own native students. It further prohibits institutions from requiring co-requisite coursework for courses governed by a CNAP unless that coursework is a typical remedial education requirement of the institution in the area of math or writing. And lastly, it prohibits institutions from offering courses similar in course description and outcomes, but not governed by a CNAP unless certain conditions are met. Rule 105 governs the termination of courses subject to CNAPs. It requires institutions to respect CNAP course rights and guarantees for 7 years after an institution terminates a course. Rule 110 requires the council to regularly review adopted courses for ongoing alignment and grandfathers in all previous CNAPs that have been developed prior to the adoption of these rules to avoid invalidating prior work that has been done in good faith. These courses developed prior to this rule set must be made compliant with this rule set during the next time those courses come up during the review period. And finally, Rule 115 requires institutions to notify the council when it's either seeking to offer a course similar in description and learning outcomes to a CNAP course, or when it wishes to modify a course governed by a CNAP in a manner that would cause the course to become non-compliant. In response, the council must determine how to act and whether or not the CNAP should be modified in order to accommodate those course changes. There are a couple of points of departure from the Transfer Council's recommendation. There is also some public comment that we received. Given that no one has sort of made point to testify for the commission about the rule set, and this is, I think, not contested in the manner that some elements of the major transfer map rule set are. I'm not inclined to review those items with you. They are in the docket, and I'm happy to answer questions about them or about the entire rule set generally at this point. I would note also that Veronica Dujan is here. She's another director on the transfer project. And if you ask a question and I start to grimace, please call her up.
Thank you. Commissioners, those of you who have been with us for a while know how complicated both the transfer work and this common course numbering has been, and our determination to smooth it and make it as efficient as possible. So behind the complexity of these rules, one by one, there's a lot more complexity that and a huge amount of work that we don't see. So questions about this for Kyle? Commissioner Middleton.
Thank you, Chair Rowe. And thank you for your presentation. I do appreciate the work that's being done with this common course numbering, which is very important. I really appreciate the rule of not allowing institutions to require a retake of a common course. I have some questions about the same number of credits. And as I understand, that's one of the really sticky points that faculty have struggled with at times. And I wonder on the same number of credits, if it's also the same type of credits, because I'm not reading here. In other words, lecture versus lecture lab in terms of, particularly in the area where I'm most interested in mathematics, and the academic freedom that institutions may
have there?
Commissioner Middleton, that is a fantastic question. It is a scenario that has just arisen in the area of lab sciences. The way that we staff propose interpreting the rule set as it pertains to uniform number of credits is that the lecture and lab components essentially be rolled in under one CNAP, right? And so that CNAP may say that a biology course with a lab is a 5-credit course. We propose interpreting that as being blind to how the institution splits those credits. If it wants to do a 3-credit, 2-credit split for 150, as is the case in some institutions, we would determine that that would be allowed so long as the receiving institution nonetheless provides that 5 credits and doesn't require the student to retake any particular component of that course.
Thank you.
Any other questions or discussion? Yes.
Thank you for going through this entirely in detail. I really appreciate that. And as pertains to Section 100, prohibiting institutions from offering courses similar in description and outcomes unless certain conditions are met, can you talk a little bit about what those conditions are?
Absolutely. So the conditions are the conditions that I later described in the final rule that I presented to you, which is that they must make a notification to the transfer council, and the transfer council will ultimately need to determine whether that course is substantially similar and is thus governed by the CNAP, or if that course is different and thus not governed by the CNAP, or if the proposal to offer that course is creating a situation where the council needs to modify that CNAP in order to account for that course or the changing condition that caused the institution to provide notification.
Seeing no other questions, can we have a motion to approve, please? Thank you. Thank you. Motion and a second. All in favor? Say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Kyle, and to the Transfer Council. I know this is hard won.
Thank you.
Okay, your last rule proposal that we have today is actually to repeal a workforce innovation non-discrimination plan due to superseding federal legislation. And that is Kurt Tackman from HECC, correct? Are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Thank you. Good morning, Chair Rowe and Vice Chairman Heyman and Commissioners. My name is Kurt Tackman. I'm a Deputy Director in the Office of Workforce Investments at the HECC. I'm here to present the repeal of OAR 589-020-0110. There was a public comment session held on September 20th. No comments were received. This OAR was originally written in 2002, has been revised several times in efforts to keep up with changing federal guidance, excuse me, which has also changed several times since then. The rule is intended to describe HECC's responsibility regarding creating a biannual non-discrimination plan and appointing an equal opportunity officer. All of the requirements listed in this OAR and more are now covered by the Code of Federal Regulations, 29, Part 38. And our office believes that since the federal language supersedes it, this rule is redundant in that capacity. Additionally, it is a challenge to maintain it as the federal guidance changes. If the federal guidance would change and this rule were not updated, it would create a discrepancy and potentially lead the state to a non-compliant issue with the federal regulation. So for that's the primary reason we are saying this rule would be repealed. All of the requirements are currently now laid out in federal law and regulations. Are there any questions?
Any questions? Thank you for the clear explanation. Motion to approve. Thank you. And a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all for getting us through the rulemaking changes. We are now very pleased to have Dr. Ann Cudd, the president of PSU, and Ben Berry, the chair of the board. As you approach, I want to thank you very much for your hospitality, your staff services and help. Your welcoming, the tour we had yesterday and the facilities. It's really been a pleasure to be here, and we greatly appreciate it. And we're glad to have this opportunity to hear from you about your strategic plan. So.
Wonderful. Good morning, Chair Rowe, Vice Chair Hayman, I believe is on the line, commissioners, and Executive Director Cannon. I'm Ann Cudd, President of Portland State University, and I'm pleased to be here presenting Portland State's new strategic plan, Future in Focus. And what an amazing opportunity to be able to present it to you on our campus. So thank you for hosting your meeting at Oregon's Public Urban Research University. As you said, I'm joined by PSU's Board of Trustees Chair Benjamin Berry. And before I turn it over to Chair Berry, I want to start with a thank you. On behalf of all 7 public university presidents, I want to thank you for the letter you sent to Governor Kotek about the ARB. We share your concerns that the funding levels described within the ARB or Oregon will hinder progress towards state goals for post-secondary education from the state to students and jeopardize recent progress at improving affordability, equity, and workforce development in our state. I also want to thank you for continuing to work with us toward the release of the $25 million in sustainability funding that the legislature allocated to PSU and the technical and regional universities at the end of the 2023 legislative session. I know we will continue to work with you to ensure that those funds are used to further PSU's financial sustainability while strengthening our public university system. So before we move into the presentation about our new strategic plan, Future in Focus, I want to turn it over to PSU's board chair, Ben Berry, for some opening remarks.
Thank you, President Cudd. And good morning, Chair Rowe, Vice Chair Hayman, commissioners, and Executive Director Cannon. First of all, I want to welcome you to PSU. It's just exciting to have you here at your quarterly HECC meeting. So it's really an honor to host every single one of you, both virtually and in person. I am Ben Berry. I'm the chair of the Portland State University's Board of Trustees. And I must admit, it is a bit unusual for me to be sitting on this side, because normally this is where we have our public comments. Now I really understand why they call it the hot seat. So I really can appreciate that. However, I could not be more proud to have the opportunity to sit here today and share the board's support for PSU's new strategic plan and mission statement. I want to also share a bit about Portland State University and the impact that we have on our students, community, and the region. PSU is the public urban research university in Oregon. Our focus is on access, social mobility, and supporting the success of the region and the state of Oregon. PSU is invested in Portland's future. Prime examples include the major buildings projects on our campus, like the Vernier Science Center, which I think you all had the opportunity to see yesterday, which many of you were able to see, and the Vanport building, which is located next door and brought together Portland State University, the City of Portland, Portland Community College, and the Oregon Health and Science University. Our alumni stay in Oregon and contribute to some of our state's most pressing workforce needs. As a tech executive, I am proud that we have more alumni working at Intel than any other university in the state. We're a major contributor to the diverse workforce needed to sustain the semiconductor industry. We're also critical to and have played a legacy role in addressing Oregon's behavioral health and addiction crisis. 50% of Oregon social workers graduated from PSU School of Social Work. These are only some of the things that highlight our students' important work and impact on the region and Oregon. However, Today, we are here not only to showcase the great work that we are doing, but share our vision for the future of PSU with the new strategic plan. I will admit that when I first joined the board, the strategic plan, which was approved back in 2016, was something that many of us felt didn't reflect our campus, community, or impact in the region and Oregon. Given this, when we began our search that led to President Cudd's appointment, one of the top priorities that the board had for our 11th president was completing a strategic plan to give us a direction and path for the future. Today, I am here as board chair and a former PSU student to share the new strategic plan, which the board recently approved at our fall meeting. And I think it is essential to highlight a few things from the work that was done that led to the new strategic plan. First, our purpose statement or mission as required by the statute, vision, and guiding commitments truly reflect the institution and the voices of our community. Second, the strategic plan involved the voices of our students, faculty, staff, and community as we defined our future leading us to 2030. This strategic plan also is a lot for us. It distinguishes PSU as an engine for social mobility and access for students. It meets the needs of our future as a minority BIPOC institution. It contributes to a financially thriving university and continues to highlight the impact that PSU has as Oregon's only urban research university. And lastly, it is a strategic plan and our future in focus. Now it's my pleasure to turn back to President Cudd, who will present the strategic plan to you. President Cudd.
Thank you, Chair Barry. As Chair Barry said, embarking on a new strategic planning process was one of my first tasks as a new president. We knew as we embarked on this plan that we needed to make some significant changes to the way that PSU operates in order to put us on a path to financial sustainability. But we also knew that we couldn't make important choices about what we will do and what we won't do without a new strategic plan. And so last year we embarked on a year-long effort to define a vision for 2030 and to determine what we would need to do to get there. We needed a plan that would distinguish PSU as an engine for changing the college success rate in Oregon. We needed a plan that would help us meet the needs of our future as a majority BIPOC institution. We wanted a plan that defined our place as the urban research university in Oregon. And we needed a plan that would point the way to a financially thriving university. We also needed to define who we are as a university and to confirm what we stand for. So next slide, please. So our purpose. First, let's talk about PSU's purpose, which stands in for our mission statement for your approval. It begins with our motto, let knowledge serve the city. Portland State University, Oregon's most diverse and only urban public research university, was founded in 1946 to serve veterans returning from World War II. PSU provides access to a top-tier education as a key driver of economic and social mobility and serves as a source of growth for diverse communities in the region and a catalyst for social progress. And it isn't just what we do, it's who we are. Much has changed in our world since 1946, and our communities face profound challenges. With our future in focus, we express our unwavering purpose to support learners to follow their dreams and achieve their goals for a better life for their families and communities. As we remember our institutional founding with pride, we embrace our future as an urban minority-serving research institution, inspiring each other to create new opportunities for our region and our world. I am so proud to be leading an institution with this purpose, and I am proud of everyone at PSU who has played an important role in PSU's past and the role that we will play in its future. So, and while our purpose statement nods to our past, our 2030 vision paints a compelling picture of our future. PSU thrives as Oregon's urban research university, where every student develops the knowledge and skills they need to successfully engage in careers and the world. We are a national leader for social mobility through higher education, a model for serving minoritized learners, and a driving force for Portland's success. PSU is a dynamic workplace that supports the professional development and well-being of all employees. We harness our academic excellence, innovative research, strategic partnerships, and community engagement to address local, regional, and global challenges. I'm incredibly inspired by this vision, and I hope that all of you are as well. Next slide. So before I move on to the guiding commitments and our strategic imperatives, I want to talk a little bit about how we arrived at this plan, because this was truly a bottom-up plan. I mean, I didn't sit in my office with my executive team and just make this up. This strategic plan is truly an example of how diversity of thought, experience, background, and opinion gets us all to a better and more innovative university. So back in February, we held 3 in-person listening sessions in our Smith Ballroom to learn about what people value about PSU and how we can improve the value propositions that we offer to our students and our employees. But that wasn't all we did. We started with the Heart of PSU survey to identify what people love about PSU and where they feel we need to improve. We held focus groups, pop-up conversations, meetings with community members to get feedback on our value propositions. And we solicited, recorded, and read over 370 ideas from the community that led us to our 2030 vision and gave us ideas about what it would take to get there. So, our guiding commitments. With this input, we determined a set of guiding commitments. These commitments do more than simply state our values. They explain how we intend to live up to our values, what we pledge to do to ensure that our students, our employees, our partners, and our communities experience PSU's commitment to them and to their future. And these guiding commitments are providing equitable access to quality education, welcoming and supporting all learners, building a community ethos of care and well-being, co-creating the future of our region, and modeling responsible stewardship. And there are more details about each of these commitments in the full plan. Next slide, please. Okay, so finally, we crafted a set of strategic imperatives. And these are the things that we must do in order to deliver on our 2030 vision. So we wanted to craft a small set, not overpromise, but the things that we absolutely feel we have to do to get there. Our first strategic plan is to create clear pathways for our region's learners to achieve their educational goals and provide a strong return on investment. This will require that we commit to some definitive actions. We need to define clear academic pathways to ensure that they're tied to future employment and responsive to the market. We have to be transparent about the cost of tuition and fees. We need to recruit students from across our region and identify programs that will attract mid-career learners to come back to school and get a leg up on that next job opportunity, and provide research-based and engaged learning experiences that equip our students to be the world's future problem solvers. So I think this quote really hones in on the commitment to prepare our graduates to achieve their dreams. And we have faith that our graduates will deliver what the future needs from them. Next slide. So strategic imperative 2. Our second imperative is to lead the Pacific Northwest in serving minoritized students and boosting the college success rate. Meeting this imperative requires doubling down on high impact and culturally responsive practices that deliver quality education and a sense of belonging. We must strategically recruit and retain diverse faculty, staff, and graduate students. We absolutely must improve persistence, retention, and graduation rates for low-income, first-generation, and minoritized students. And we have to use the tools of data analytics to improve our student success and completion initiatives. So I'm sure this quote will resonate with many of you. I know that, like me, you recognize the power of higher education to provide economic and social mobility to our students. Our third strategic imperative is to support and empower our employees and our operations. And this requires that we restructure our administrative operations so employees can focus on core job responsibilities and better serve our students. It requires that we invest in professional development and provide competitive pay and benefits for employees. And we have to carefully assess with data all of our academic, research, and administrative functions. When we are making decisions about employees, we have to remember that we're not just moving around boxes on an org chart. We need to honor the humanity of those impacted by the decisions and include them in the process. Slide. So this quote illustrates, I think, the frustration that some may feel when they encounter our bureaucracy, red tape, and systems that need to work better. We know we have to fix this to ensure that this is a better place for people to work and to learn. Finally, our fourth strategic imperative is to drive Portland's economic, social, and cultural resurgence. Portland State and Portland rise and fall together. Our employees, our students, our neighbors, and our communities are deeply affected by what happens in this city and region. It's therefore our responsibility and clearly in our interest to work toward a thriving downtown Portland and a thriving region. We will do this by building public impact focused interdisciplinary research partnerships that tackle complex social challenges. We will do this by building connections between our students and regional employers so they can experience internships, mentorships, and research opportunities that build their skills and improve their career outcomes. We will do this by collaborating with local organizations in the arts, business, government, and civil society to apply creativity and innovation and to set in motion Portland's urban renaissance. We will do this by creating vibrant and sustainable community spaces that foster connections, learning, and well-being. And we will position PSU as a gateway to Portland for talent from elsewhere, seeking an opportunity to grow a meaningful career in this beautiful, open, and creative city in the Pacific Northwest. Being in and of Portland makes us different. It gives our students immense advantages in the job market. It helps us attract students and talent. And being in Portland helps us increase the impact of our teaching, research, and creative activity. So what's next? Now that we've completed this part of the plan, we must plot out the specific tactical steps required to make our vision for 2030 come to life. We are starting with the things that we believe will help us achieve financial sustainability, while also advancing our strategic imperative to better serve students by providing clear pathways through degree programs and into careers. And that will get us to the point where we can invest the resources we need to accelerate our implementation of the plan. Much of our success will be defined by what takes place in the classroom. So we need to ensure that our faculty have the tools they need to improve academic outcomes. Advising will also be key. Students need help figuring out where they're going and the shortest path to getting there. We need to empower our administrative and marketing support if we are to succeed in getting students into PSU and through graduation. And we must build more impactful research partnerships if we're to meet the technical and societal challenges of the day. Those are just a few of the things that we must do to deliver on our guiding commitments and to achieve our focus, our vision for 2030, and to put our future in focus. So thank you, and I'm going to hand it back over to Chair Barry.
Thank you, President Cutt. I want to emphasize the importance of what PSU does for the entire state of Oregon, and just brief notes here. Well, this plan is very focused on the Portland region because we know that PSU must partner with the city to drive Portland's recovery and renaissance. We also know that what we do here at PSU is essential to the well-being and economic vitality of our entire state. PSU recently completed an economic impact study that shows that our statewide impact is over $1.8 billion. Our students come from all parts of the state, and our graduates stay in Oregon, with some 70% of our alumni living and working here. While PSU is facing a number of challenges, this strategic plan focuses on the future, and we know that PSU will continue to support learners in following their dreams and achieving their goals for a better life for their families and their communities. Thank you very much.
Thank you, President Cudd, and Board Chair Barry. Are there questions about the plan itself or about, as President Cudd noted at the beginning, the purpose is standing in for a mission statement, which is our action item this morning. But any questions anywhere on the plan or anything that's been said? Yes, please go ahead.
I just was noticing that you will be implementing this in the coming year, or developing a plan to implement this strategic plan in the coming year. Are you going to convene more groups to look at how, I know the budget is part of it, and some metrics. How are you planning on developing the action part?
Great. Those are great questions. So first of all, we are starting with the financial sustainability part of that, which will be a pretty collective, collaborative process. And we're having a workshop tomorrow that will gather together the deans to look at our curricular efficiency element of that financial sustainability. But that is an important part of the clearing the academic pathways and making sure that our degree programs directly funnel students into good careers and so forth. So that's a start. We're working on the metrics, and we will be presenting those to the board of trustees at least initially at the end of the month, but we'll have our financial sustainability plan as well for our November 21st meeting. But it won't stop there. We will continue to convene groups to take on different parts of this strategic plan. It will have to be a very collaborative process. It takes us all.
Other questions? Oh, yes. Go ahead, Commissioner Andrews.
Thank you, Chair. And thank you, President and Chair. I appreciate all of the work that's going into this, and it's really nice to be able to read the plan and see that you have a lot in here about convening elected officials, civil servants, civil leaders, and the amount of work that is going to go into implementation. I'm curious to know if you have any thought or plans around engaging with tribal leadership, as a lot of your students, as you know, are sovereign domestic citizens. They're also minorities, but have a specific political designation as well. And those tribal partners, I'm going to encourage you to reach out to, because as I think that that can be very beneficial for everybody, as Portland is, I think, either the 6th or 9th largest urban Indian population in the United States, including reservations. And you have a really great opportunity for engagement and helping to not only, support the comfort level of your students and attendance, but possibly some financial benefits as well with that engagement.
Yeah, thank you for that question, Commissioner Andrews. We just last year hired a tribal liaison who directly reports to me, and she and I have been starting to meet with every tribe, every tribal council throughout the state. And so we're working our way through that. And yes, we definitely intend to convene tribal leaders. And we have throughout our, at least the last 10 or 20 years, as our Native American Student and Community Center has been a real great convening and gathering place for that. You had a chance to see the Vernier Science Center yesterday and see how we really are centering indigenous knowledge and indigenous foodways in our science program and our cultural studies programs. So I agree with you completely. It's very important groups to convene.
Just quickly, I think that there's a lot more work going on in this area than we know. And we all got to take that tour yesterday, and so we know, and we can all spread the word. It's sometimes calling it out in your more public materials helps spread that word in that way as well. Because if I didn't have this on my mind, or I didn't have that tour yesterday, I wouldn't know from looking at your plan documents today. But we know you're doing the work, so thank you for improving on that.
Thank you.
Oh, yes, Commissioner Yamasaki.
So I love the determination of the resurgence of Portland, the revitalization of Portland. So I'm curious in what you see your role as in bringing Portland to where you would like it to be.
Yeah. So first of all, we are 44 acres in downtown Portland. And having a vibrant campus is really essential, I think, to revitalizing Portland. And we are still working on revitalizing our campus since the pandemic. And that's definitely an important goal of ours. So that's part of our metrics that we're measuring how much foot traffic there is, how many events we're holding and things like that, and seeking to increase that as well. So that's one, I think, really important aspect of just what we do every day, right? But then, we are also very invested in the arts community and the performing arts community, and hoping that we will be soon be building a performing arts and culture center on the south end of our downtown, which would be, I think, an enormous contribution to the resurgence of Portland and really show that Portland can do big things. But aside from that, we're engaging in a placemaking activity or initiative to upgrade the signage and the look and feel of the campus community so that people feel a better sense of belonging here on campus and really know when they're at the Portland State campus. But beyond that, we have such a deep, abiding interest and commitment in community engaged scholarships. So just earlier this morning, I was giving a welcome to a community engaged scholarship consortium, and hearing from people about their projects, but also hearing from them about how they see Portland State as a real leader in that. So we will continue to double down on that. One of the important things for example, the Homelessness Research and Action Collaborative their partnership with Street Roots is one of those kinds of projects which combines engagement and scholarship with a community partner. So we're going to, continue to do that and just continue to build on it. Our business accelerator, our development of workforce pipelines into things like the semiconductor industry. So those are some of the things, as Chair Berry mentioned, we make an enormous economic impact, and we seek to even, just amp that up some more.
I'd like to follow that. My entire working life in Oregon was 2 blocks down the street. I'm your neighbor. I live right up Montgomery Drive. And I think, and I've been here over 30 years, I think that for a long time it was easy to take Portland State for granted if you're a citizen of Portland. And it is clearer today, I think, than it has ever been, your leadership role in making Portland a success again, and therefore contributing, as you say, Chair Berry, to the success of Oregon. And so I understand and hear all the things you say. I think there's also a big piece of making all of that more visible, especially where you are bringing your expertise and research, as you say, to the city. I know we had in prior decades, when the urban center was a lot more prominent, it was easier in public media and in other places to see the impact of your expertise. So I think that, yes, the physical footprint is huge, the economic contribution is huge, but that I would, and this is a suggestion, not a question, I would suggest that the public knowledge of PSU's future and your determination to make PSU financially successful and sustainable and help build the city needs a lot more public airing and connection. So, but I thank you very much for having that as an important part of your plan. Oh, yes, no, please, Commissioner Simnett.
Thank you. Thank you for your comments, Chair Rowe, and thank you for your presentation. I don't really have a question because my questions have already been answered. I wanted to just add my appreciation of the strong connection that the plan and the discussion has around the importance of the institution to the community. And I'm really excited about many of the things that you've talked about. I think this could be a real model for other places. I think that is something that institutions of higher education need to do a better job of, is really showing their interrelatedness with the community. And I'm very excited about your plans and look forward to seeing how they materialize.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any more questions? So this is an action item for us. We need to approve the PSU mission as part of their strategic plan.
Madam Chair,
Oh, yes, I'm sorry. Commissioner Devlin.
I was just going to make the motion.
Oh, Mike, I didn't know if you were questioning or motioning. Thank you very much. Commissioner Devlin is making the motion. A second? Thank you. Any other questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Your mission is approved. Thank you very much for sharing it with us personally and for your commitment in coming here.
Thank you. It's my
I have 2 more brief comments before you escape. One is, I don't know if all the commissioners have it on the profile of Dr. Cudd in Inside Higher Education. Chronicle, I'm sorry, I get them confused. If you ever doubted how difficult a president's job is, especially a new president, Guthrie, will you please make sure everyone receives that? It is a clear picture of one of the most challenging first years a college president could have. So thank you for being candid in that and sharing it. It read like it was true. I hope it was accurate from your perspective. Also, we don't have the financial sustainability plan back in in front of us yet. You'll remember, those of you who were on the commission, that last winter, the legislature sent it back to us because they did not believe, and I think some of us had hesitation of whether it was truly addressing sustainability in a way that others could have learnings from. We now have those reports, and you referenced it, that it's going to your board, so there's no reason to go into detail, but I wanted to get on the record our thanks and my thanks to you. Your proposal for PSU and how to use those sustainability funds really goes beautifully to the overall purpose. You are the most declarative and clear in laying out the circumstances you face and the actions you intend to take. And I was just personally tremendously encouraged by those, and believe that your leadership and participation with the other presidents in this will be helpful to all. So just while you were here, I wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you. And if I may just take the opportunity to thank especially my team, Sheila Martin, Vice President for Public Affairs, and my Chief of Staff, as well as my Government Relations team, Kimberly Coops and Eric Knoll, for their really important work on that, among others. But thank you very much for that.
Look forward to seeing the progress that you were able to do because of that extra funding. Anything else? Ben? Anyone? The big hammer. We're adjourned. Thank you very much, commissioners.
Nice job.